Hello Anglophonians, and welcome to another episode where we normally take a look at European comics, but this time it's the Europa-Park's turn again. Well, we've learned that the family Mack had the idea for the park, and then they were looking for a place to build it. And they were in Breisach and in Neuenburg, but they didn't find the right spot. Now, in today's episode, they take a look at a small fairy tale park in a small village called Rust. And that's important. It's pronounced German, Rust, not Rust or something like that. Or if you live in the area, you may pronounce it Rust, but not Rust. It has nothing to do with corroded metal. Corroded? Is that correct? I don't know. I don't care. Well, but can they find the right spot to build the Europa-Park there?
As always, we first want to see where the place is, relative to the Mack Company location in Waldkirch. We see that Rust is located to the northwest, also on the Rhine, and the A5 motorway also passes nearby. However, in the early 1970s, Rust had no direct connection to the motorway. Guests therefore have to drive through the neighboring towns, coming from the north through Grafenhausen and Kappel, and coming from the south through Rheinhausen. And now I guess I have to say, spoiler warning! If we look at the modern city map of Rust, we can already see the Europa-Park, which has finally been built there. But first things first. Rust was originally a small settlement of farmers and fishermen. The name was first mentioned in the will of a bishop of Strasbourg in 762. Yes, that makes the place over 1200 years old. Between Rust and the Rhine lies the Taubergießen area, a wetland with many natural springs. The fishermen sail their punts along the canals of the Taubergießen. There are families who still do this today. You can today also book tours here. A visit to the Taubergießen is particularly fascinating because of the rich nature. The name Taubergießen has a special meaning. Gießen means a spring that is fed from groundwater, and Taub literally means deaf. These are therefore deaf springs. This means that the spring comes directly from the ground and the water has hardly absorbed any minerals or nutrients. This makes it unsuitable for the growth of most plants, hence deaf. You can see it very clearly if you compare the water of a canal that comes from a deaf spring with the water of the river Els, which also flows through the area and into the Rhine. On the left we see the much clearer water that comes from a deaf spring, on the right the water of the river Els. In addition to the fishermen, there were also farmers in Rust. The place never grew very large. At some point its population leveled off at around 1,700. The village received a small boost when it became the headquarters of the Böcklin von Böcklinsau family in 1442. They took over a moated castle that stood in Rust and converted it into their family home. The castle was given the name Balthasar Castle in 1500, named after Balthasar Böcklin zu Böcklinsau. The area at Balthasar Castle was expanded into a castle park and a small chapel was built there. Then someone in the family decided that two castles were needed and built a second castle in the Renaissance style. But no one called the family afterwards Böcklin Two Castles of Böcklinsau. Other older buildings can still be found in Rust today, such as the Church of St. Peter in the Chains. The special thing about it is that it has been turned around, so to speak. The altar was originally on the eastern side of the chancel. During renovation work in the 1950s, it was moved to the western side. Here we see the tombstone of Franz Friedrich Siegfried August Reichsfreiherr Böcklin von Böcklinsau, died in 1813. Right next to the church we find the historic schoolhouse, built in 1770. It is still in use today. Until Kristallnacht in 1938, there was also a Jewish community in Rust. This building was the community center and is to be converted into a museum. The former synagogue was so badly damaged that it had to be demolished after the Second World War. These 3 arches that hung over the former entrance to the synagogue are a reminder of this. Other turbulent times came to the town as tobacco consumption increased and local farmers were able to make more money growing tobacco. Here you can see a tobacco shed in which the leaves of the plant were hung to dry so that it could be processed later. There was even a cigar factory in Rust. However, this remained an interlude because after the tobacco boom subsided, the factory was closed again and the farmers went back to growing other crops. A catastrophe for the local fishermen struck the town when, on November 1st, 1986, a chemical factory warehouse in the Swiss town of Basel, over 100 kilometers away, caught fire. The extinguishing water flowed unhindered into the Rhine and caused massive fish death. This fountain commemorates the catastrophe in which all the eels in the Rhine were killed over a length of 400 kilometers. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Back to the 1960s. Rust is a small village. In 1969, someone decided to build a fairy tale park in the castle grounds of Balthasar Castle. It is a small park with houses in which simple animatronic figures tell the stories of well-known fairy tales. However, the park does not have a large budget and the number of visitors is rather low. Then, in the early 1970s, Franz and Roland Mack appeared on the scene, looking for a location for their theme park, which they called Europa-Park. Negotiations are being conducted under the mediation of the mayor of Rust, Erich Spoth. The Macks agree to take over the fairy tale park and the area of the castle park. They also want a right of first refusal on Balthasar Castle. Eventually, they come to an agreement. All Franz and Roland Mack have left to do is to convince the banks to give them a loan for such a large project. And it turns out, one bank is not enough. 2 banks have to work together to raise the required amount and secure the loan. Then the work can finally begin. The planned opening date for Europa-Park is July 1975.
So there you have it. Finally, yes, this is the spot. And next time we take a look at the first years of the Europa-Park. Yes, it was really built. But next time, really next time, we take a look at another comic. So until then, take good care of yourself and see you